Okay, so this video is going to be comparing two knives. Now this was requested from one of my viewers, and I thought it'd actually make a very interesting video, so here I am doing it. Now the two knives I'm going to compare are the two in front of you, obviously, the 560 and the 550 from ZT. Now these both are designed by the same guy, being Rick Hinderer, which is obviously very well known for his custom knives. Very talented knife designer right there. And obviously they are both manufactured by Zero Tolerance Knives. So very cool. They do have a lot of similarities, which you might not notice right off the bat. But let's take a look at them first real quick. And this viewer did ask a few questions which he wanted me to answer, obviously, and I'll try and do that throughout the video. First off, the main difference you'll notice if you just lie them beside each other is just the sheer size difference. The 560 is a larger knife than the 550 in terms of just length. Overall, it's probably just under an inch longer, I'd say, and you can see where the handles and how much longer the handles are. So it is a larger knife in that respect. Now, again, both designed by Rick Hinderer and manufactured by Zero Tolerance, so you do have very similar construction. First off, you do have titanium locking side on both knives. Okay, stainless steel pocket clips. Obviously this one has the more standard ZT pocket clip, where this one is more of a pocket clip design for this knife, which is pretty cool. Being a Hinderer design knives, you do have the stabilizing discs. Same hardware on these knives. Okay, looking at the spine of the handle, you have the same pillars, same size and everything. Both knives have a stainless steel liner and a G10 scale on the non-locking side of the knife. And again, same hardware on this side. Both have the same thumb studs, or same style thumb studs that act as the blade stop. So very similar in terms of that. Even the blade shapes are again similar, not the same, but if you lie them on top of each other here, the 560, which is the larger one again, does give you a little bit more belly. But in terms of EDC and utility, they're both really good for that. Same grind, and they both have a swedge on top. They both are stonewash finished blades. Hopefully you can see that. But what's really nice is that they match really nicely. So if you have both these knives, since they match so well, it's kind of a cool little pair to have. Now, I think in the future, ZT mentioned they're going to come out with some coated versions of both these knives, but my preference is stonewash. So that's pretty neat. If you close them both here, you'll notice right away that the 560 does have a flipper as an opening mechanism, whereas the 550 only has the thumb studs. To me, the flipper really isn't a selling point at all. If anything, that's a negative. But that's only because I don't like flippers. I mentioned that in videos before, but I know a lot of people actually like them. They like just flipping it out like that. I kind of ignore it. I just use the thumb studs and it works perfectly fine. But that is kind of an added feature, I guess, you have with the 560. Now the handle shapes, just the kind of shape of the handle is actually very similar between the two knives. If I hold them up like that, you can see both starting at the front have a finger choil and then a flat portion here. Both have jimping at the latter portion of that flat. Okay, both have kind of like a little angle up here, a flat butt, angles up and then flat again. So I mean, even the handle shapes are fairly similar, which is kind of funny. But just want to mention that. Quickly, I want to not answer the question yet, but kind of touch on it. This viewer asked me, is the 560 worth the extra money? Now the 560 in general costs about $60 or more than the 550, and just to give you an idea of why that may be the case is, first off, you do have the 3D machining on this G10. Now this G10 is really nice. I really like the design on it, but it will cost more to make the G10 as such. Obviously the titanium side on this 560 is a little bit more fancier than the 550. It obviously does have some nice 3D machining on it, whereas this one's just a straight bead blast. Okay, the inside of this titanium side on the 560 is heavily milled out, which does lighten the knife overall. Now I don't think I'm going to get a great shot of this, and I don't have a flashlight on me at the moment, but Upon taking this knife apart, you'll notice that the titanium side on this knife is heavily milled out, and obviously that does add to the cost a little bit, whereas the titanium on the 550 is just kind of a solid slab of titanium there. For me, that, you know, the milling doesn't really do anything. I don't mind my knives to be a little bit heavier, but I do know a lot of people will like it in terms of ease of carry or whatever. They'll think, or they'll say that you know, the lighter knife here will carry a little easier and not weigh you down as much. Another, you know, cost adding feature on the 560 will be the ball bearing system, the KVT, Kershaw Velocity technology, which is ball bearings within the pivot. Obviously that does add some cost, whereas this one just has the regular washers. It's still really smooth though, but it's not like this buttery kind of frictionless smooth opening that the 560 has. So obviously that is, you know, gonna add to the cost a little bit. The steels are different also. The 560 here has an LMAX blade, which is a very high quality steel, and I've had some really good experience with it. I'm a huge fan now. Whereas the 550 has an S35 VN. So I'm gonna say that most people will consider the LMAX as a quote-unquote higher quality steel, just given its characteristics. However, both steels are very high quality. I mean, they're both fantastic steels. So I don't think you should really get caught up on the fact that this is LMAX versus the S35 VN. But let's quickly weigh them, because I mentioned all the milling and stuff makes this knife lighter. And if I turn on my scale really quickly, I've weighed this once, so I think I'll get the same result now. But if I put the 550 on here, which is again the smaller one in terms of length, 6 ounces on the dot. If I put the 550, or sorry, 560, it is 5.85. So this is 0.15 ounces lighter than its smaller brother, which again is just due to the fact that ZT milled out that titanium so much. But again, a lot of people like that, and it did add to the cost. So getting back to the question, which was, is the 560 here on the right worth 60 or plus more dollars than the 550? I'm going to say yes. Not so much in terms of its functionality or its utility-ness, but just in terms of all the, you know, add-ons and bells and whistles you get on this knife, if you will. It is worth the extra money that you'll pay. Obviously you have all the machining and everything else I talked about. Most of it is novelty. I don't think any of it adds to its functionality, but if you're a knife collector, as I am, it is worth the extra money. However, I am a collector, however I still use my knives. But I think it's a pretty sweet knife to have, even paired up with the 550. Now in terms of ergonomics, and I did want to touch on this because it is quite interesting, the 550, which is I think a thicker knife, now just comparing them, you know, just eyeballing it like this, you really can't tell a huge difference. The 550, which is on the left there, might be a tad thicker, but I mean you can use calipers or something to measure that, but I'm not going to do it in this video. But the 550 feels the hand a lot better, and upon, you know, EDCing both these knives for quite a while, I'll tell you I do actually prefer the 550 in hand if I don't have a glove on. The 560 down here feels to be thinner, and I remember taking this out of the box. I'm holding it like this. Originally I just thought it was a little thinner than I expected, which isn't a bad thing. A lot of people will like the thin handle, you know, again for ease of carry. So I mean it's pro and con, but in terms of using it, the 550, which is the fatter guy, definitely fills up the palm a little bit better, which I really like. Also, and I really did want to touch on this, the jimping on the back of the handle here is really unnecessary in my opinion. They went ahead and left the 550 here kind of plain, no jimping in the handle there, which is definitely my preference. The 301 from ZT also suffers from this problem, and that's that if you grab the knife like this, which is what I will usually grab my knife as if I'm doing heavy cutting tasks. I know a lot of people grab their knives like this, but if you're cutting something really hard, or at least if I'm cutting something really hard, I'm almost always in this grip. I mean, I really never use a knife in this grip. So if you're using a knife in this grip, you can already see the problem. This heavy jimping, which is quite heavily cut into there, is digging straight into that meat of my hand right there. And if you don't have gloves on and you're doing you know, hard cuts over and over, it hurts, and I mean it hurts bad. So again, this knife and the 301 alike suffer from that problem. I personally don't like it at all. I know some people will, but in terms of ergos and comfort, I'm gonna have to give it to the 550 just for filling up my hand a little bit better. But again, some people may have a different opinion on that. In terms of which knife I like better, it's really hard to say. In fact, I'm not even going to pick one because both these knives are fantastic. I mean, you will not be disappointed in either of these knives you buy. The 560 obviously does, again, have more bells and whistles. It's more fancy schmancy. You know, you got, again, 3D machining, ball bearing pivot system, LMAX steel. You got the heavy, you know, milled out titanium side. But in terms of functionality, you know, the 550 in my mind is just as strong as a performer as the 560 here. So basically pick whichever knife suits your needs more. If you want a little bit of a bigger knife, obviously go for the 560. A little bit of a smaller knife, go for the 550 here. They both carry fantastic in the pocket, and I mean very similar in many different respects. And heck, if you have enough money, get both of them like I did, because they're a really cool pair to get. That's basically my comparison video. I hoped this answered all your questions, and that's basically it. Thanks for watching, guys, and stay tuned for many more videos in the future.